Welcome back to the Rally Room. I'm your host, Emiliana Guereca, and it's Wednesday, March 4th. So by the time this episode gets released, some of the information will have changed. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening or watching us on YouTube. It's the first week of Women's History Month. Yes, we have a month. First week of Women's History Month, and we're already making history, as we know we have. So what we know is that the SAVE Act is dead in the Senate. Bye. So let's call it what it was. It was a poll tax, plain and simple, requiring passports, birth certificates, IDs. All of that is a price tag on democracy, a price tag on the vote. So, nope, not having it. So it went from the House to the Senate. It failed at the Senate because no matter what your political party is, we understand and know that fair and free elections is what democracy is about. So, winning there. But let's talk about the Winter Olympics. I'm talking in particular about the women's hockey team because they brought home the gold, but also they declined a visit to the White House. And we had everybody feeling some kind of way about it. But realistically, let's think about what they've done. They have won gold as Olympians. Women don't need validation from the White House, from convicted felons sitting in the White House. So whatever. So they declined the visit. More power to them. They don't need the validation like that. As a matter of fact, power needs validation from women. Why would they show up? So yeah. So kudos there. But what all of this is happening and we're celebrating Women's History Month or starting to in the week, we also understand that the United States has entered into a military conflict with Iran. So they're bombing Iran. They've deployed resources there. They are also deploying resources to Ecuador. And don't forget that we captured Maduro from Venezuela. So again, we are living in a country that doesn't value education, never has money for education, never has money for healthcare, has defunded a lot of the fundamental rights that we understand and have always had. Public schools, right? No money for anything, for infrastructure, for bridges, for education, for healthcare. But we somehow always manage to find money for war. I mean, think about the Department of ICE, right? The Department of ICE has unlimited and unfettered access to money. Imagine a school having that type of money. In the meantime, we've got teachers trying to fundraise and figure out how they're going to pay for supplies for their students out of their own pockets. Never mind that we don't actually pay teachers what they should be paid for what they do. Again, I am a complete anti-war person. I do not think wars fix anything. I do not think that the changing of a regime in Iran is going to be any better. So the past few Republican presidents have gotten us into war, from Reagan to the Bush and second Bush, right, to Trump. So we are always at war when there is a Republican in the White House as president. They seem to be warmongers. Those are just facts. Those are just facts when you look at history. So that's what we are. Women's History Month. I don't think we would be at war with any of these countries had we elected a woman president. That's just where it's at. So welcome to Women's History Month. So this week, we're also going to talk in the rally room. We're going to talk about voter suppression, what's going on. And of course, we're going to touch at the rally point and respond to some questions. And again, always send us your questions. We are at the rally room. We're also at Women's March Foundation. So you're allowed to send in questions. So put them in the chat, put them in YouTube, or via social media. We will respond. So let's look at the SAVE Act, right? We already talked about it being a poll tax, requiring folks to always continue to show ID. This is part of voter suppression. We already know that it's a price on democracy, but it's disenfranchising voters. And let's also talk about really what happened yesterday in Texas. What happened in Texas? I mean, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was running for the Democratic nomination for Senate in Texas. She's tough and she has what it takes. Unfortunately, she was not successful in her bid for Senate for the Democratic nomination for Senate, as Tellerico won that nomination by about 10 points. But what I want us to look at is what happened in Texas yesterday. So what happened in Texas yesterday was the redistricting process. So yesterday, voters were supposed to go out to vote, right? So for the Democratic nomination for Senate was Tallarico and the Democrats and Jasmine Crockett. And because Texas had redistricted, a lot of people showed up to vote at their polls and they were turned away. So they were turned away from the polls. And so what that created was chaos to the point the state Supreme Court had to look at if it was possible for some of these polling sites to be open later as people were being turned away. So, you get off of work, you go to vote at your precinct, and all of a sudden they say, hey, you are not at the correct precinct because of redistricting. So I want us to keep in mind what that's going to do in the United States for midterms as we think about voting in November, as the country has faced different redistricting, whether it was Texas, California, Virginia, among other ones, I think Illinois as well. So thinking about making sure that we are strengthening our voter outreach, right? Strengthening our voter outreach for the rural voters, for the low income voters, for the seniors, right? You may have voted at a certain location for decades, and that may have changed or will change midterms, especially if your area was redistricted. So I want us to think about all of that and how we need to make it less complicated to vote. I think there's talk about Jasmine Crockett suing Texas as she does not believe that all of the votes were counted. And I think that both Tellerico and Crockett need to talk about that. Every vote should be counted. Provisional ballots should be counted. All of it needs to be counted because we need to make sure that people continue to trust elections, especially coming back from, we're still not over it, but from the 2020 disinformation campaigns that the president is still pushing that the election was stolen from him. And so we don't want to have voters think that their vote will not count. So we've got to be prepared with information, how to vote, where to vote, if you've been impacted or if you think you were redistricted. I know I was in California. So wherever you're at, start thinking about how you're going to vote, where you're going to vote as we move into midterms, because it's going to be critical. The chaos that happened yesterday in Texas around Dallas in particular had to do with redistricting. And I think it harmed women. I think it harmed Jasmine Crockett. I really do. And so we'll see where all of that leads us, because I do think that she was the most impacted. So we're going to keep looking at see what is happening and what will continue to happen in Texas, because I think it's a preemptive to November midterms. Okay. So, all right. So let's continue. I have a question around, someone sent a question around if changing their last name will not allow them to vote. And I want to repeat that the SAVE Act failed in the Senate, so we should be okay. That's just where we're at. Then the other piece around, do we think public pressure worked? I'm going to say absolutely it worked. Public pressure works. Organizing works. Calling your senators, calling Congress works. I mean, so I do think that people talk about saving democracy. I want to say that it's reclaiming democracy. I don't think that it's even defending it. I think that it's reclaiming it, right? I want to think about how we start Women's History Month as intentional, right? So women's history has been built on resistance and resilience. And so thinking about reclaiming democracy, I think is how should we should be framing it. I think language matters. And so when we say reclaiming democracy, I think that it's because it's frail. And we know that because as women, we've lost rights with the fall of Roe. And so it's a frail democracy. And we know and understand that when democracies fail, they start to fail women first. And this is where we're at. So, all right. So we're going to continue. Let's talk about what is happening beyond our borders. What is happening, it's going to be costly for us at home. And so this is a president and it's his regime, his entire cabinet talked about America first, right? Talked about America first, ran on a platform of Make America Great or whatever it was called, Make America Great Again. And always talking about making America great. But the reality is, the United States is in military conflict now with Iran. So, and we've deployed resources to Ecuador. And once again, we're spending money on war. Um, so, and again, Venezuela. And they were talking about Cuba as well. And let's not even talk about Marco Rubio. I mean, Marco Rubio is an embarrassment to the Latino community. I mean, he is sitting there as a Cuban American talking about, war with Iran, war with Venezuela, talking about possibly Cuba, and now for sure we're deploying resources to Ecuador. So let's sit with that for a minute, because this is the same government that has no money supposedly for anything else. So, yeah, they've found money for military conflict. They found money for military conflict to get in military conflict with Iran along with Israel, who, you know, we have no business being out there, and it's going to cost us. It's going to cost us at the pump. We already know that gas prices are going to be out of control. The stock market's going to be affected. It's just no, no war. And no finding money for war and terrorizing people across the globe, including in our own backyard. So I just think that we need to rethink when we talk about reclaiming democracy. We need to rethink that. Why do we not ever find money for women, children, but also the aftermath, right? Think about the homeless population in the United States. A lot of them are veterans. And so we're talking about always finding money for war to deploy our women and men out, right? And then we don't have enough resources then to take care of them or their families. I mean, women and children are the ones that are going to be suffering as men go out to war and as working families, right? So the infrastructure is not there to hold daily life and families together. And now talking about increased prices at the gas station, at the pump, right? Because that's what that means. I also want to say that the Iran war is unnecessary. I don't think we should have gotten involved in it. I think it's a choice that the president made, and keep in mind the president made this choice without consulting Congress, which again is something that must be done. So that's where we're at. So I think war takes its toll on people, and I think that the chaos that the president has created has everyone on edge. I think that in the home front, people will pay the highest price around as well. I mean, I think we saw it at the Olympics as well, where some of these players are representing the United States, and I think this may have been one of the first times where they've gotten booed. I mean, I think that across the globe, the way the United States is being viewed It's not in a positive way. So let's see what happens. And I also think it's about budgets. I mean, they say, show me your budget and I'll show you your values, right? So our budget currently says that we are warmongers. I mean, think about it. The Department of Defense is now named a Department of War. Yeah, Department of War, led by Pete Hegseth, a Fox News analyst, right? So I just think, yeah, show me your budget and I'll show you your values. And I think we're not in a good place where that is concerned. Again, because we have a huge budget for ICE. And again, it's militarization in the streets, in our backyard, and now wars across the globe. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And I'm going to repeat, I don't think we would be at war had we elected Harris, had we elected a woman from way back in 2016, right? So we would not be at war. We wouldn't. So yeah, so framing it that way for Women's History Month. Yeah. So now let's shift into what happened with the men's hockey teams. They were trying to be shifty around not everything is political, right? And they were being preachy, right? And at the end of the day, they tried to pretend that they were not MAGA bros. They didn't want to be political, but they showed up at the White House with red MAGA hats. So thumbs down for those men in the U.S. hockey's team that showed up at the White House in full-blown MAGA hats, pretending like not everything is political. So whatever. I know athletes have complicated decisions. I understand that. But let's remind everybody that not only did the president make snide remarks about the women's hockey team, the men's hockey team did as well. The cultural expectation that we have of our sports stars has always been around what they believe in politics. Not everybody participates in that. But I do think it's important. I do think that kids and people have role models, and yeah, we do want to know where they stand, right? And I also think that there was not enough backlash for the men's hockey team. Right. There wasn't enough backlash. There wasn't. But for the women that declined, there was. But you go, men's hockey team, you go to the White House and have McDonald's while the women's hockey team had gourmet meals with the chef. So, yeah. Um, so let's also talk about how we continue to talk about women when we have a month named after us, whether it's Black History Month, Women's History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian American. We know that we're not equal and we're not the majority, right? So I want us to remember about what it's taken even to get a Women's History Month on the books. Women had to march for the vote. They had a demand to be counted. We're still demanding equal pay because women still do not have equal pay. And as a matter of fact, we've regressed. So post-COVID, we know that post-COVID, women left the workforce at higher rates. And I think it had to do because we are also tasked with taking care of families, taking care of elderly parents and whatnot. Reminder, we are still defending bodily autonomy. We are still defending that, and we're still fighting to make sure that our voting rights are kept intact. But we're resilient. We're resilient and we're fighting back against a government that has never put us in a constitution, right? We are not in the constitution. Women are not named in the constitution, and we are the only ones that have no bodily autonomy. There are no laws in the books. There are no laws in the books that control a man's body. I'm gonna say yet. So we're gonna continue to do that. I'm gonna answer a question around what should we do for Women's History Month. As women, we want to support women. So I'm gonna say to buy from women-owned businesses. Research, right? Women-owned businesses, buy from that small business owner that is female-led, volunteer with organizations that advocate for women's rights. Be a feminist. So you don't have to just be a woman. A feminist supports the equality and building of equity and equality for women. I think society is a better place when women have upward mobility. It is both good for women and men when society values women. So history is not behind us. It's still happening. We're still going to make history as women because we want to elect women. We want to elevate women. So the question should be, how am I participating? How can I help women reach equality and equity? And I think that is in all of our best interests. So you can start by making sure you vote for a feminist, buy from women, support women's equal rights, support women's equal pay. You could start at work. You could start locally. Look at who your representatives are. How are they supporting women and families? Because that's what it is as well. So, all right. Woo! That brings me to the rally point. Yes. Coming up in the rally point. Don't go anywhere. Rally point, stay right there. So here's your rally point for the first week of Women's History Month. We're going to ask you to celebrate women loudly. We talked about it earlier. Protect voting rights relentlessly. Yes, and I'm going to say volunteer at any organization that elevates women. So I'm also going to say that we want to be thanking some of the senators. We want to make sure the senators are thanked for blocking that SAVE Act bill, which would have made voting much more difficult, because I do believe in gratitude. I do believe in gratitude. So I think that gratitude should be a strategy, as we're thankful that we can continue to do this work. I know I am. And I'm thankful that the senators saw the bill for what it was, which was a poll tax. So I want to talk about what we do in the meantime. So I want you to ask yourself a question, like, who is paying for this war? Then ask, what could be using this money for? And I'm going to ask you to send an email or call your senators and congressmen to talk about, definitely Congress. We do not want our money going to war. We want our money going to schools, healthcare, families, veterans. That's where our money should be going to. Show me your budget and I will show you your values. Okay? So we're not just reacting, we are building as women. We're going to continue to talk about it. So this week, how are we making history? Where am I making history? Where are you making history? And how are we elevating women? We got a whole month. Is this just the first week? Yes. Post how you are supporting women this month, this week, because it has to be intentional. Who supports women has to be all of us. All right. So it has to be intentional. And I'm going to leave you with this. Women have always been powerful. Always. We've just been written out of the story. But we've always been powerful and we will continue to be powerful. We're going to continue to tell our stories. So thank you for joining me. I'm Emiliana Guereca, your host in the rally room. If you are in Los Angeles this weekend, Saturday, join me for coffee, donuts on the west side of Los Angeles. I want you to click share, send me your questions. Thank you for joining me in the rally room. Stay loud, stay organized. I'm going to say stay woke, stay woke and caffeinated. Happy Women's History Month.